Hi, I'm Tinny from minibulldesign, and today I'm going to talk about suitable places to cook your dinner when you're out on the Appalachian Trail. Now, in an earlier video, I mentioned that the SS remote, or as far as that goes, any gravity feed remote, are not that suitable for cooking in the wild. Now, is this the wild? Actually, no. This is a fairly flat rock in back of a rustic building. But this isn't the wild, and that's not what I was talking about when I mentioned the wild. The wild is a place on the Appalachian Trail or on any trail away from civilization where you're going to stop at, say, noontime to cook your dinner. You're going to just step off to the side of the trail somewhere and look for a suitable spot to cook a meal if you're going to cook for dinner. Some people don't. So let's look at a spot that I would consider to be the wild. Okay, this is, although a rather good wild spot, this is in the wild. No man-made structure, although I am setting on a broken down rock wall. But any group of boulders on the Appalachian Trail would do. And I have an area here to cook that's probably as good as anything I'm going to find. Now, let's move the camera in here a little closer, and I will show you what I'm talking about suitability for the SS remote in the wild. Okay, I've got my bottle of fuel, and I have my cooking kit. This is a 10-centimeter pot with a minibulldesign lid, and I've got a relatively flat rock to work with, and I've got a M2 and a remote. Okay, now, in order for this to work correctly, the remote has to be at just about the same altitude, same height as the M2SB that I have. Now, as it's setting right now, it's quite a bit higher than the M2SB, so that means it'll probably flood it, because the alcohol level in this right here will be way up here on this one. And it might be okay, but it might not. So, if I reverse it and go over here like this, now it won't feed at all because the alcohol level is below the bottom of the stove and I won't get any alcohol at all. So, this way, no alcohol. And this way, probably it'll flood it, although I might be able to get away with it. But if I bring it over here on a lower spot, right in here somewhere, I think I could cook with that quite successfully. So let me fire this up and then we'll see what we've got. Okay, I have the stove going, and I know you probably can't see that. Now you'll notice that I have a 5x23 pot stand which fits inside of the 10-centimeter just fine, and then I have the windscreen inside of that. The bigger the pot stand, in my opinion, the better. You can't have a pot stand that's too big as long as it fits in your pot. And I have a nice windscreen. Now, what we need is some water. So, let's go get some water. I should have gotten that before I fired up the stove. Okay, here we have your typical stream. It's running clear. Had a lot of rainwater. And I'm going to take my 10-centimeter and scoop up about 2 cups of water. Now, the first thing you'll notice immediately is the water has a yellow cast to it. Now, that's probably because it's rainwater that's coming out of the swamp, because it's been raining the last few days. Now, this poses an interesting conundrum. Put my camera back and move back a little bit. Okay, one of the things I want to point out here is I've got my water, I've got a pretty good spot, and it appears I found a level spot for the SS remote. Now, if this remote is just a little bit higher, it'll flood the stove. And if it's just a little bit lower, the stove won't blossom out. It's fairly critical. It's within 1/4 of an inch. It's got to be at least as high as the stove, and can probably go 1/4, 3/8 of an inch above the bottom of the stove, but not any more than that. And if it's anything below the stove, it won't feed at all. So you get kind of a fussy situation. And to be perfectly honest with you, if I was just coming out here off the Appalachian Trail to just boil 2 cups of water, I wouldn't screw around with that remote. Very few AT hikers would. They just pop out their nipple cap, screw it right on the bottle, and just sit here and hand feed it. No big deal. Don't have to worry about getting anything level. You're only boiling 2 cups of water. Okay, now let's talk about boiling water. Now, some people say no need to boil water. You can rehydrate food, Mountain House or whatever, with water that's, say, 170 degrees. You don't need to boil water. There's no need to boil water. You don't need boiling water for coffee. Okay, now let's look at it from Tinny's point of view. Okay, this water is yellow. It hasn't been filtered. And the reason why I didn't filter it is I'm going to sterilize it by heating it up. Okay, I think I've only got to bring it up to 170 or 180 to sterilize it. And that's probably hot enough to also rehydrate a meal. That makes sense. But how do you know when it's 180? I don't have a thermometer with me. There's no inherent physical things that are going to take place to tell me it's 180. So when I think it's at 180, I just turn the heat off and put it in my meal. Now maybe it is 180 and maybe I'm all set. Maybe it's only 150. Maybe it's only 140. Maybe it's only 120. I don't really know for sure. So if it is much cooler than I think, I make a mistake, I put it in my meal and I eat it, 3 days from now I may come down with dysentery, because there's a lot of protozoa and God knows what in there, and unless it's at least 170, it's not going to kill it. But there's a really easy way around that, and anybody that's done any backpacking to speak of knows this already. This is for the newbies. The easiest way to make sure that your water is sterilized is to wait till it comes to a boil. And how do you know when it's at a boil? It bubbles. That tells you you're at 212. If the water is bubbling, you're at 212, unless you're at a really high altitude, and that is a surefire thing. You look at it, it's bubbling, you know it's sterilized, you're in. Whereas if you're trying to do the 170, save a little fuel, yeah, save 1/4 of an ounce of fuel and end up with dysentery for a week. I think I'm going to boil my water. Now, not all stoves boil water easily. Some stoves really struggle to boil water. These stoves, the M2s and all the M series, will boil water within reason, and 12 centimeter pot, 3 cups, is not a problem. But you want to make sure your stove is easily capable of boiling water. If it doesn't boil water, you very easily, unless you're very skilled at judging temperature, you very easily could get yourself in a bad situation. I usually filter all of my water before I use it, even if I'm going to boil it. But that's just me, and I'm pretty sure if I was on the AT on a daily hike, I would build up a resistance to this stuff, and I probably wouldn't filter unless it was really nasty. Yep, there's a boil. Outwardly obvious to anybody. And I now know that this water is safe to drink or safe to put in my meal and eat. And 3 days from now when I wake up, if I've got dysentery, it won't be because of that water right there. It'll be because of something else. Cross-contamination from bad bathroom habits or passed on from another hiker. But that's the truth of the matter. So I'm Tinny from minibulldesign. Get out and hike, take a friend, enjoy the great outdoors, and more important than anything, try to have a really great day. And for you skeptics that think this hose hanging down here is going to affect the fuel flow, it has no effect on it whatsoever. This hose could go down 20 feet and come back up again. The only thing that affects it is the distance from the height of this compared to the height of the stove. Although, if I hold the hose up above the stove, then we bring a whole new set of physics into play. Bye-bye.